Chapter 3. It took a minute before anyone realized Tim was hurt. He had just scored his first goal. His teammates were dancing on their skates, arms and sticks thrust high in victory. Coaches whooped with joy. Everyone saw Tim go down. Kids go down all the time. They often lie there, perhaps wondering how it happened or contemplating the view from ice level. Eventually they get up. Tim didn't get up. The right forward on Tim's side had, as usual, deserted his position and followed the herd chasing he pucked down the far side. Coach Gorman had motioned Tim to move up and cover the forward spot. Seconds later, the puck burst out of the dense pack of players and shot across and down the ice to Tim, slowing down just enough that he was able to get his stick on it. Tim began to move the puck up. Behind him, the herd gave chase. Tim was nearing the goal alone, no one to pass to. Suddenly, Tim realized it was a breakaway. He'd have to shoot. Stick back, down, crack. The puck flew forward. It wasn't a perfect shot, but the goalie wasn't perfect either. The puck headed toward the goal, something few grade 5 shots actually did, and slid between the goalie's legs at the precise moment the mass of players reached Tim from behind. Tim had slowed to make his shot. His pursuers, opposition, and teammates alike didn't stop or swerve. The hit sent Tim face-down across the ice. His helmet hit the boards and stopped him. It was that hard a hit. He should have got up again, but he didn't. The realization that something was wrong washed over everyone, players, coaches, and parents. The cheers died, and in a silence broken only by the swish of boots half running, half sliding across the ice, coaches from both benches rushed to where Tim lay, sprawled and still. "You ride with him," Milt told Alan as the paramedics loaded the unconscious Tim, strapped to a special frame, into the ambulance 18 minutes later. "I'll go find his father. Nanton will look after the kids, make sure their parents are home and know what's happened. I don't want any boy home alone." In the ambulance, Tim was attached to several monitors. One attendant spoke into an unseen microphone. "Transporting 10-year-old male, hockey injury, unconscious, head hit guard wall, sending vitals." The ambulance leapt forward, sirens screeching for attention. "Is he okay?" Alan asked anxiously. "Father?" "No, hockey coach. He's stable. I don't know more than that. We're sending all his vital signs to a doctor at the emergency room as..." "Unit 11, confirm have vitals on screen," broke in a woman's voice from a speaker overhead. "Head immobilized." "Yes, doctor," the attendant responded. Alan noticed that he was checking what appeared to be sandbags on each side of Tim's head. 20 milligrams of codeine. I'll monitor. Let me know when you turn in. Emergency response team is scrambling and will meet you." 20 milligrams of codeine, said the attendant, confirming the doctor's order as he injected the drug into Tim's arm. "That will keep him sedated so he won't suddenly come to. We don't want him thrashing around until the ERT assesses him," explained the attendant to Alan. The ambulance suddenly halted under a heated canopy lit by bright yellow mercury vapor lights. The back doors were yanked open. Hands reached in, loosened the stretcher clamp, and Tim slid out. By the time Alan scrambled down, Tim and his handlers were disappearing through swinging doors. Alan rushed after them as they wheeled Tim into a room and began transferring him from the stretcher to a hospital gurney. Alan, unsure of what to do, entered as the door shut behind him. He stood silently against the wall. In the brightly lit room, he wasn't hidden, but the swarm of green-garbed technicians, doctors, and nurses didn't pay any attention to him as they feverishly worked over Tim to assess his condition. Alan recognized the doctor by her voice. On the ambulance radio, there was a distinct Irish lilt to her words. The accent was all that gave her away, however. Everyone on the emergency response team was dressed in the same shapeless green operating room-style pants and shirts nets-covered hair, masks hung around necks, and most jacket pockets had a clipped-on pager. When needed, they used names, not titles, and it was impossible to tell who, if anyone, might be in charge. Each seemed to know exactly what to do and instantly let others know what was happening. Decisions were made, but it seemed to be the group, rather than one individual, who made the decisions. Just what the process was Alan couldn't say. It was as if they worked in unison instinctively. An X-ray machine swung out from the wall and hovered over Tim. The doctor and 2 others consulted a monitor and asked several times for the machine to be repositioned. From what Alan was able to understand, Tim, although still unconscious, didn't have a skull fracture or broken neck or back. "All right, let's get him into MRI, stat." As the group moved away from Tim, Alan was spotted and politely but firmly hustled out to the waiting room. Tim was rolled off through another door. 20 minutes later, Tim's father arrived, accompanied by Milt Gorman. Just then, the woman Alan had identified as the doctor came across the waiting room. "Mr. Burrows," she asked. "Is he all right? I'm Burrows. Your son's had a bad accident, but we're very hopeful he'll recover completely. Right now, though, he's unconscious. He has a subdural hematoma pressing on his brain. We have to relieve the pressure. I've called in Dr. Nancy Cantor. She's an excellent neurosurgeon." "Operate," said Tim's father, his voice quavering as he tried to cope with the news. "Dr. Cantor is very good. I'm sure Tim will do just fine. He's young and strong, but we have to relieve the pressure. You'll need to sign some papers." "Yes, of course," said Tim's father, and he followed the doctor to the admitting office. Alan and Milt sat down to wait. 2 hours later, they were still waiting, with Tim's father, for word from the operating room. The smile on Dr. Cantor's face told the only story that mattered as she crossed the waiting room. Tim was alive and doing well. "Your son, doing just fine," said Dr. Cantor. "They're moving him to intensive care. You'll be able to see him shortly." The operation had gone smoothly. The problem was exactly as predicted. The only question now was when Tim would regain consciousness. The anesthetic would soon wear off, but he might not be conscious right away. It might take some time. "Hours, days?" his father asked. "We don't really know," replied the surgeon. Left unsaid, but as clear as if it had been, was the possibility that Tim might not regain consciousness. As if reading everyone's mind, Dr. Cantor said, "It may take Tim some time to recover. I'm not concerned. I don't think you should be." "Thank you, doctor," said Tim's dad. "Thank you for saving Tim's life, I guess." "My role is really quite small," the doctor said. "The people in emergency and in the ambulance do whatever saving needs to be done. Then the assessment team tells me exactly what to do and what to expect. I had a team of 10 in the operating room with me, and every one of them played a vital role. Right now, the team in intensive care is looking after Tim. I appreciate your thanks, but I want you to know I'm just one member of a team. We all depend on one another." With that, the doctor suggested Tim's dad visit his son. A bed in a family area next to intensive care was available for him to spend the night. Milt offered Alan a lift home. "Did you hear that doctor?" Alan said, speaking to himself as much as to Milt as they got in the car. "She really was sold on teams, and she's a hot-shot surgeon. Things sure have changed. I had a girlfriend once whose dad was a surgeon. He thought he was God. He didn't have team members in the OR, he had servants." "Things have changed," said Milt as he turned onto Allen Street. "The surgeon we met tonight is an example of an effective team leader. Her goal isn't to be boss and make sure everyone knows she's in charge. It's to do whatever it takes to help the team perform well. If necessary, she can lead and take charge, but if others have better knowledge or skills, she is delighted to step back and let them take control. She'd rather see the team do well than be boss." "You learned this selling bottled water?" asked Alan. "When it's slow, you get lots of time to read," Milt said with a laugh. "I've always been fascinated by management books." Alan sat quietly for a moment after Milt stopped the car in front of his house. "Being the leader isn't the issue, is it?" said Alan thoughtfully. "What that surgeon was really talking about tonight was being a helpful team member. Everyone on her team, including herself, has to be focused on the success of the team rather than on his or her own success. Each of them works to serve the common good. There's no room for even one prima donna. Everyone's loyalty has to be to the team. That's their only reason for being." "That's right," said Milt. "But beyond that, The group can't be successful just helping each other and working as a team. They have to serve their patient. They are held together by a compelling purpose, saving lives. Good point, said Alan. Unfortunately, said Milt, people sometimes get so caught up in the process or working out the best leadership style that they forget what they're supposed to be doing in the first place. You see it a lot in hockey, not at the grade 5 level, of course, but with some of the more senior teams. Beautiful plays, lots of passing, everyone playing position, but they don't score. As I said, organizations can get so focused on beautiful processes that they forget what they're really supposed to be doing. Getting it right starts to get in the way of getting it done. Alan lay awake in bed that night thinking about Tim, the emergency room scene he'd witnessed, and the doctor's words. Tim really had been saved by a team. The doctor said it was the MRI scan that told them what had happened and showed what she had to do. I may have done the surgery, but that MRI is the real hero, and I don't have any idea how to run that machine, the doctor told Tim's father. By the time Alan finally fell asleep, he had grasped what the doctor had told them. The medical staff, acting as a team, not individually, had saved Tim. They couldn't have if they'd acted as individuals. It was the total interdependence, the pooling of skills, that made the difference. Further, Alan believed the doctor was right about another point. No one skill was more important than another one. Ultimately, an individual skill reaches its potential when combined with other skills. That was fine for medicine, but it was different in business, Alan told himself. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't so sure. A chink had opened. He clung to the idea that business was different, but then at one time he had believed that flying in the Air Force was different, too. However, if he accepted the doctor's logic and applied it to his Air Force experience, his success as a pilot wasn't only because of his skill in the cockpit or even checking weather forecasts. In the end, it was because he was part of a team. The mechanics who maintained the engines, the people who had designed the plane, the workers who had riveted the fuselage, the ground control, his navigator. The list went on and on. These were people he depended on, people whose skills were critical to making his individual skill of any use at all. He had known that these people were important, but he had always seen them as support people, and never as members of a team whose contribution and importance were equal to his. Now Alan began to realize that he had been wrong about his pilot experience, and if he'd been wrong about that, was there a chance he was also wrong about business? Alan had a troubled sleep that night. His wife assumed his tossing and turning was the result of the trauma of rushing Tim to the hospital and the subsequent surgery. It was, but not for the reason she imagined.